My name is Evelyn Harper. I'm 34 years old. And 4 days ago, my fiancé told someone that being with me lowered his image. He did not say it to my face. That might have hurt less. He said it while sitting in our living room, dressed in a cream linen shirt I knew cost more than my monthly car payment, speaking into his laptop like he was discussing a disappointing brand campaign instead of the woman he was supposed to marry. My friends think she's too plain for me, Nathan said. Evelyn is nice and stable and whatever, but she doesn't have the look. Being with her genuinely lowers my image. I was standing in the hallway with my hand still wrapped around my keys. I had come home early from a site inspection because one of the contractors had mixed up the delivery schedule. The afternoon sun was cutting through the blinds, striping the floor in gold and shadow. I remember that detail because my mind clung to anything except his words. Nathan Cole and I had been together for 3 years, engaged for 7 months. Our wedding was 2 months away. Venue booked, invitation sans, deposits paid, a dress hanging in the spare room closet that I had only tried on once because every time I looked at it, I felt like I was stepping into a future I had trusted completely. Nathan worked in public relations for a luxury fashion brand. He was polished in a way that looked effortless, but never was. Perfect hair. Perfect shoes. Perfect smile. He knew which fork to use at every dinner. Which designer had fallen out of favor. Which rooftop bar made someone look successful just by being photographed there. I was a civil engineer. I wore work boots more often than heels. I owned 3 navy blazers because they all looked the same, and that made mornings easier. I drove a reliable sedan with a dent near the back bumper that I kept forgetting to fix. I knew drainage systems, soil reports, load calculations, and how to stay calm. When a project manager started yelling, I was not glamorous, but I thought I was loved. Then I heard Nathan laugh softly. It's embarrassing sometimes, he continued. Like at that gallery opening last week? Everyone was in designer. Everything. Talking about Milan and Tokyo. And Evelyn shows up in a department store blazer, talking about stormwater runoff. My throat tightened. I love her, he said. And somehow, that made it worse. But God, she's just so boring. Whoever was on the other end said something I could not hear. Nathan sighed. I don't know. The wedding's already planned. Maybe once we're married. I can work on her image? Get her to dress better. Network more. She just needs to be less herself. Less herself. That was the sentence that stayed. Not too casual. Not too practical. Not even too plain. Less herself. I stood there for what felt like a full minute. Though it was probably only seconds. My body had gone cold in that strange way. Bodies do when the heart understands something before the mind is ready to. Then I backed out of the apartment as quietly as I had entered. Nathan did not hear me leave. I sat in my car with both hands on the steering wheel, staring through the windshield at nothing. A woman walked past, with a grocery bag tearing at the bottom. Somewhere down the street. Edo bagel. Life kept moving, with insulting normalcy. My phone buzzed. Nathan, where are you? Thought you were coming home early. A minute later. Nathan, everything okay? Then another. Nathan, Ev. I did not answer. I drove to a coffee shop, 6 blocks away, and ordered a black coffee I never drank. I sat near the window for 2 hours. My laptop open. My hands steady, in a way that scared me. I did not cry. Not then. Instead, I made a list. The venue. The photographer. The florist. The caterer. The DJ. The decorator Nathan insisted we hire because, according to him, lighting changes everything. Every vendor. Every deposit. Every carefully chosen piece of a wedding that suddenly felt like a stage set for a lie. By the time I went back to the apartment around 7, I had made up my mind. Nathan was in the kitchen making dinner. Barefoot. Humming along to some soft jazz playlist he always used when he wanted the apartment to feel expensive. There you are, he said. turning with a wooden spoon in his hand. I texted you like 5 times. I had some things to take care of. What things? Work stuff. He studied me for half a second, then smiled, like the answer satisfied him. Long day? You could say that. He leaned in and kissed my cheek. I let him. That was the first moment I realized something inside me had already stepped away from him. My body was still there, standing in our kitchen, smelling garlic and wine and rosemary. But the part of me that had trusted him was somewhere else. Watching from a distance, we ate dinner. He talked about wedding wine. I nodded. He asked if I thought we should add a chocolate fountain for the reception because it would photograph well. I said, sure. He laughed and told me I was easy. I almost smiled at that. Easy. I had spent 3 years being easy to love because I did not demand sparkle. I did not compete with his world. I showed up, paid bills on time, remembered his mother's birthday, listened to his work drama, loved him quietly and consistently. Apparently, that had made me plain. That night, lying beside him in the dark, I listened to his breathing deepen while the ceiling blurred above me. I thought about the way he had said my name on that call. Not with tenderness, not even with guilt, with inconvenience, as if I were an unfortunate detail in the story of his own life. Tuesday morning. Nathan left for his office downtown, wearing a charcoal suit and a watch he had once described as subtle luxury. He kissed me goodbye and reminded me we had to finalize the seating chart that night. Don't forget, he said. My table has to look balanced. Balanced. Not loving. Not meaningful. Balanced. As soon as the door closed behind him, I sat at the kitchen table and started making calls. The venue was first. The cancellation policy was brutal. We would lose 60% of the deposit. I understand. I told the coordinator, are you sure you want to proceed? I looked at the framed engagement photo on the wall. Nathan looked radiant in it. I looked happy. Yes. I said, cancel it. Then the photographer, the florist, the caterer, the DJ, the decorator, on the B1. I dismantled the wedding. Some vendors sounded sympathetic. Some sounded irritated. One woman paused and said, gently, I'm sorry. That almost broke me, but I held it together. By Tuesday afternoon, there was no wedding left, except the dress in the spare room closet, and the invitations already sitting in other people's homes, like little paper ghosts. I had lost thousands of dollars. I did not care. That evening, Nathan came home with a bottle of wine and a folder of reception ideas. I was thinking, he said, spreading glossy printouts across the table. We should maybe upgrade the floral installation behind the head table. It'll be in every photo. I looked at him. He was so beautiful. That was the cruel thing. He looked exactly like the man I had loved yesterday. What do you think he asked? I think you should choose whatever fits the image. He smiled. Missing the blade entirely. Exactly. I nodded. He had no idea that none of it mattered anymore. There was not going to be a wedding. Wednesday morning. I packed a bag while Nathan was in the shower. Not everything. Just enough for a few days. A few changes of clothes. My laptop. Important documents. A framed photograph of my parents that sat on my bedside table. The shower was still running when I zipped the bag closed. I sat on the edge of the bed and waited. For a moment, I wondered if this was the point where normal people had the confrontation, the dramatic scene, the accusations, the tears, the explanations. Maybe that would have been healthier. Maybe it would have given him a chance to defend himself. But every time I imagined that conversation, I heard his voice again. She just needs to be less herself. There was no defense for that. The bathroom door opened. Steam drifted into the bedroom. Nathan stepped out, wearing a towel around his waist, drying his hair. He immediately noticed the bag. His smile faded. Going somewhere. I'm going to stay with my sister for a few days. What? He blinked. Why? I need some space. His expression softened. Wedding stress? I almost laughed. Of all the lies between us, that was the easiest one. Something like that? Ev. He sat beside me. You know, we can talk about things. Right. I looked at him. Really looked at him. The man I had planned to marry. The man whose last name I was supposed to take. The man who had spent months discussing centerpieces and guest lists while secretly being ashamed of me. Not right now, I said quietly. I just need time. Concern appeared in his eyes. Real concern. That was what made everything so confusing. Because Nathan was not a monster. He wasn't cruel every day. He wasn't abusive. He was attentive, affectionate, funny. But somewhere along the way, he had stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as an accessory. Something that either enhanced his image or damaged it. And somehow, that hurt more than outright hatred. He kissed my forehead. Okay. Text me later. I will. Another lie. I left 15 minutes later. My older sister Danielle lived about 35 minutes away, in a quiet neighborhood filled with maple trees and identical mailboxes. She was 38. Divorced. Fiercely independent. And possessed an almost supernatural ability to detect nonsense. When she opened the door and saw my overnight bag, she immediately frowned. Uho. Can I stay here a few days? Of course. She stepped aside. What happened? Long story. She studied my face, then nodded. Got it. No pressure. No interrogation. Just support. I loved her for that. The day passed slowly. I watched television without paying attention. Answered work emails. Pretended to function like a normal human being. Inside, however, I felt strangely detached. Like I was watching my own life through a window. Around 6 o'clock, Danielle appeared with 2 mugs of tea. She handed one to me. You going to tell me what's happening? I stared into the steam. Then I told her everything. The video call, the comments, the cancellations, the bag, the silence, all of it. Danielle listened without interrupting. When I finished, she set her mug down. Then she said exactly 4 words. What a stupid man. I laughed. The first genuine laugh I'd had in days. You don't think I overreacted? She stared at me. Evelyn. Yeah, he literally said being with you lowered his image? I know. He said you're embarrassing. I know. He said you need to become less yourself. I know. She leaned back. Then why are we pretending there's another side to this? I didn't answer. Because there wasn't. Not really. The problem was that I still loved him. Love had not disappeared the moment I overheard the call. That was the unfair part. My heart was taking longer than my brain. Wednesday evening. My phone rang. The caller ID made my stomach twist. Nathan. I let it ring. Then again, and again, finally. A text appeared. Nathan, Ev. Call me immediately. 10 seconds later. Nathan. The venue says the wedding is cancelled. Another message. Nathan, please tell me this is some mistake. I stared at the screen, then pressed call. He answered before the first ring finished. Evelyn. His voice sounded frantic. What is going on? No mistake. Silence. Then, what do you mean no mistake? I cancelled it. You, what? The venue? Why? I took a breath. This was it. The moment everything became real. Because I'm canceling the wedding. The silence on the other end felt endless. Then came a nervous laugh. Not amusement. Disbelief. Okay. Stop joking. I'm not joking. Ev, I heard your video call. Nothing. Not even breathing. Just silence. Then finally, you heard that. Every word. The shame in his voice appeared instantly. Evain. Wait. The comments about my image. Nathan. The part where I embarrass you. Please. The part where you want me to become less myself. Let me explain. I laughed softly. There was no humor in it. Explain what? It wasn't how it sounded. Interesting. Evain. Because it sounded exactly like you calling me an embarrassment. You don't understand the context. There is no context that makes that acceptable. I was frustrated. With what? You wouldn't get it. The second the words left his mouth, he realized his mistake. I heard it. The instant regret. Too late. You're right. I said. I don't get it. Ev. Because I would never sit on a call and tell someone that the man I love lowers my image. His breathing grew shaky. Please. Don't do this. It's already done. You canceled everything. Yes. The photographer too. Yes. The florist. Yes. The caterer. Yes. The decorator. Yes. Each answer seemed to hit him harder. By the end, he sounded stunned. Like he genuinely hadn't believed I would follow through. Nathan? I said quietly. There's no wedding. Please. Don't. His voice cracked, and for one dangerous second, I almost felt sorry for him. Then I remembered standing in that hallway, remembered feeling small, remembered hearing him talk about me, like I was a defective product. The sympathy vanished. We're done. I ended the call. Immediately. He called back. I declined it. Then again. Declined. Again. Declined. Again. Declined. Finally. The messages started arriving. Nathan. Please. Let me explain. Nathan, you misunderstood. Nathan, please. Nathan, I love you. Nathan, please answer. Nathan, please. I turned off my phone. The next morning, Danielle found me sitting on her porch drinking coffee. You okay? No. Fair. She sat beside me. For several minutes, we watched the neighborhood wake up. A woman walked her dog. A teenager rode past on a bicycle. Someone started mowing their lawn. Normal life. Meanwhile, mine felt like it had exploded. Do you miss him? Danielle asked. I thought about it. Yeah. That's normal. I hate that I do. That's normal too. I looked down at my coffee. What if I made a mistake? Danielle snorted. You canceled a wedding. Yes. Not a marriage. I frowned. What? You didn't destroy a healthy relationship. Evain. She looked directly at me. You stopped a bad marriage before it happened. That stayed with me. Because, deep down, I knew she was right. Thursday evening. I finally turned my phone back on. The screen nearly froze. 91 notifications. Text. Voicemails. Emails. Missed calls. Friends. Family. Wedding guests. Even Nathan's mother. Apparently, news traveled fast. Most of the messages blurred together. What happened? Are you okay? Call me. Please explain. Only one message made me immediately respond. Mom? Honey? Please call me. I called her. The moment she answered, I heard concern in her voice. Evelyn. Hi. Mom. Oh, sweetheart. Her tone alone nearly broke me. Nathan had already spoken to her, or at least tried to. He called crying. She said gently. I figured. What happened? So I told her. Everything. Again. The story was becoming exhausting. Every retelling made it more real. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she sighed. Oh, honey. What? You did the right thing. I closed my eyes. Did I? Yes. I lost thousands of dollars. You can earn money again. I threw away 3 years. No. Her voice became firm. You discovered the truth before signing legal paperwork. I laughed weakly. That sounds like something Danielle would say. Smart woman. We talked for almost an hour. By the end of the conversation, I felt steadier. Not healed. Not even close. But steadier. Friday morning. I finally sent Nathan a text. Just one. I'm coming to the apartment Sunday to collect more of my things. Please don't be there. His response arrived instantly. Please let me explain in person. No. I made a terrible mistake. Yes. You did. Please. Sunday. Known. Be gone. Then I put my phone away. I thought the hardest part was behind me. I was wrong. Saturday night was about to reveal something far worse than a cruel video call. Something that would make everything Nathan said feel almost insignificant by comparison. At exactly 10:07 p.m. Someone knocked on Danielle's front door. Danielle answered the door. I heard voices from the living room while I sat in the guest bedroom pretending to read. A moment later, my sister appeared in the doorway. Her expression had changed. Not angry, not confused, concerned. There's someone here to see you. Who? Claire. My stomach tightened. Claire Reynolds. Nathan's closest friend. The woman who was supposed to stand beside him at our wedding. I'd met her dozens of times over the years. She had always seemed kind, level-headed, and far too honest to survive comfortably in Nathan's image-conscious social circle. What does she want? Danielle crossed her arms. She says it's urgent. I considered refusing. Part of me wanted no more explanations, no more details, no more reasons. But something in Danielle's face made me stand. When I walked into the living room, Claire immediately rose from the couch. She looked terrible. Her makeup was smudged. Her eyes were red, like she'd either been crying or hadn't slept. Maybe both. Eveline. Her voice trembled. Thank you for seeing me. What happened? She swallowed. Can we talk? Danielle glanced at me. I nodded. It's okay. My sister moved toward the kitchen but remained close enough to hear if necessary. Claire sat. I sat across from her. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she blurted out, "Please don't hang up on Nathan if he calls again." I blinked. That's why you're here? No. Her eyes filled immediately. God. I don't even know where to start. A cold feeling spread through my chest. What happened? Claire looked down at her hands. Nathan called me tonight. Okay. He was drunk. Not surprising. He was crying. That surprised me a little. And she took a shaky breath. He finally told me everything. I waited. Claire looked directly at me. Not just the video call. My stomach dropped. There's more. Yes. The room suddenly felt smaller. What more? She hesitated. For a moment it seemed like she wanted to leave, rather than continue. Then she forced the words out. The person he was talking to wasn't a friend. I frowned. Then who was it? Silence. Then? His ex-girlfriend. Everything inside me stopped. What? Her name is Brooke. I stared. Surely I'd heard wrong. His ex? Claire nodded. The woman he dated before you. I felt numb. Not shocked. Beyond shock. The kind of numbness that arrives when reality becomes too ridiculous to process normally. He was talking to Brooke. Yes. For how long? Claire looked away. Several months. My pulse thundered in my ears. How many? 4. 4 months. 4 months. Almost half our engagement. I leaned back slowly, trying to breathe. Trying not to scream. Trying not to cry. Trying to understand how the ground beneath me had somehow opened even further. He's been talking to her for 4 months. Yes. Why? Because she reached out after seeing your engagement announcement. My hands curled into fists. Keep talking. Claire nodded. Brooke saw the engagement photos online. She contacted Nathan. At first it was innocent. I laughed. The sound was bitter. Sure. That's what he said. Go on. They started messaging. How often? Every day. That answer hit harder than I expected. Every day. While planning a wedding. While tasting cakes. While discussing floral arrangements. While looking me in the eyes and talking about forever. Every day. Claire continued. Then the messages became phone calls. Of course they did. Then video calls. I closed my eyes. The hallway. The conversation. The humiliation. Now it all looked different. Not better. Worse. Much worse. He still had feelings for her. The sentence landed like a hammer. I opened my eyes. Claire's face was full of sympathy. He admitted that, yes. I laughed again. A short, hollow sound. Well, at least we're being honest now. Claire looked miserable. Evaine, no. I raised a hand. Keep going. She nodded. He started wondering if he was making the right choice. The words felt familiar. Because they mirrored my own fears now. Only his had started months earlier. He kept talking to Brooke about their past. Regret. What could have been? What if they had stayed together? Each sentence felt like another knife. Eventually, Claire continued. He started trying to convince both her and himself that marrying you was a mistake. My throat tightened. There it was. The truth behind the video call. Not frustration. Not venting. Not poor wording. Strategy. Justification. A narrative. A way to make betrayal feel acceptable. So he trashed me. Claire nodded slowly. Yes. To make himself feel better? Yes. I looked toward the window. Darkness, reflected back at me. A woman I barely recognized, stared from the glass. What exactly did he think was going to happen? Claire hesitated. Then, I think he hoped Brooke would take him back. The words hung between us, heavy, ugly, humiliating. I wasn't even angry anymore. I felt embarrassed. Not because of anything I had done. Because I'd built a future with someone who viewed me as a backup plan. What happened? I asked quietly. With Brooke. Claire exhaled. That's the worst part. Why? Because she didn't want him. I blinked. What? She said no. I stared. She rejected him. Claire nodded. She's dating someone else. The room became silent. Then suddenly everything made sense. The wedding, the smiles, the planning, the promises. Nathan wasn't choosing me. He was settling. Not because he loved me more. Because the person he wanted didn't want him. A strange laugh escaped me. Claire looked confused. Why are you laughing? Because this entire thing is pathetic. My voice shook. Do you realize what you're telling me? She nodded sadly. You were his second choice. There it was. The sentence I had already been thinking but hadn't wanted to hear aloud. Second choice. Backup plan. Consolation prize. Safe option. Reliable option. The woman who would always say yes. The woman who would never leave. Except I had, and now the fantasy he had been nurturing behind my back had collapsed. I suddenly understood why he sounded panicked. It wasn't just the wedding. It was the loss of certainty. The realization that both paths had disappeared. Claire wiped her eyes. He says he loves you. I laughed. Maybe he thinks he does. He's devastated. Good. The harshness surprised even me. Claire nodded. You have every right to be angry. I'm not angry. I paused. Then corrected myself. No. That's not true. I looked down. I'm furious. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then Claire quietly said, he wanted me to convince you to talk to him. And I told him I couldn't. That made me look up. She offered a sad smile. I love Nathan like a brother. But what he did was unforgivable. My eyes burned. Not from sadness, from validation. Someone else saw it. Someone else understood. Claire reached into her purse. He wrote you a letter. I stared at the envelope. My name was written across the front. Nathan's handwriting. The handwriting I'd seen on birthday cards. Christmas gifts. Love notes. Wedding planning lists. Now, it looked foreign. I didn't take it. Claire placed it on the coffee table. Whether you read it is your choice. I nodded. Thank you for telling me. You deserved the truth. She stood, then hesitated. For what it's worth. What? I always thought you were the best thing that ever happened to him. The words nearly broke me. Claire swallowed hard. He was lucky to have you. Then she left. The front door closed softly behind her. For several minutes I didn't move. Danielle emerged from the kitchen. Neither of us spoke. Finally, she sat beside me. Wow. I nodded. Yeah. Are you okay? I looked at the letter on the coffee table. Then out the window. Then at my sister. No. My voice cracked. For the first time, since this started, I felt tears forming. I think my heart finally caught up with my brain. Danielle wrapped her arm around my shoulders. And for the first time, since overhearing that video call, I cried. Not because I lost Nathan. Not because the wedding was over. Not because of the money. I cried because I finally understood something devastating. The man I loved had never been fully choosing me. And the next morning, when I returned to the apartment to collect the rest of my belongings, I would discover just how true that was. Sunday morning arrived gray and quiet. The sky looked heavy with rain. I barely slept the night before. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Claire's voice. You were his second choice. Backup plan. Safe option. The words repeated endlessly. Around 11:30. Danielle drove me to the apartment. Neither of us talked much during the drive. There wasn't much left to say. Some betrayals are too large for conversation. They simply settle into your chest and stay there. When we pulled into the parking lot, it felt a strange calm. Not peace, just acceptance. The worst part was already over. At least, that's what I thought. Nathan had respected my request. His car wasn't there. The apartment was empty. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The familiar scent immediately hit me. Coffee. Cologne. The vanilla candle, Nathan always insisted, made the place feel more luxurious. For a brief moment, memories rushed at me. Movie nights, Sunday mornings, Christmas decorations, lazy breakfasts, plans for a future that no longer existed. Then I saw the envelope. It sat alone on the kitchen counter, waiting. My name written across the front? Evaine. Nothing else. I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to throw it away immediately. Another part needed answers. Eventually, I opened it. 6 handwritten pages. I read every word. Nathan confirmed everything Claire had told me. Brooke had contacted him 4 months earlier. At first it had been harmless. Then it wasn't. They talked constantly. He started questioning everything. Questioning us. Questioning the wedding. Questioning whether he was making the right choice. He admitted he had developed feelings again. Or maybe they had never completely disappeared. The video call had been exactly what I feared. An attempt to convince Brooke and himself that marrying me would be a mistake. The cruelest part came near the middle. A single paragraph. A paragraph I would never forget. Brooke told him she was happy. She was serious about someone else. She wasn't interested in rebuilding their relationship. She didn't want him back. Everything changed after that. Nathan wrote that he realized how much he loved me. How badly he had messed up. How terrified he became of losing me. But by then, it was already too late. I lowered the final page. My hands were shaking. Not because I believed him. Because I finally understood the timeline. He didn't suddenly realize my value. He lost access to another option. Then he chose me. Or thought he did. The distinction mattered a lot. If Brooke had said yes, there would have been no wedding. No marriage. No future together. I would have been discarded. The realization hurt. Not because I doubted my worth, but because someone I trusted had treated me like a contingency plan. The backup route. Plan B. The safe choice. The woman waiting patiently at the finish line, while he explored other possibilities. I folded the pages. Then I tore them in half. Then again, and again, until the pieces filled the trash can. When I finished, I walked through the apartment collecting the rest of my belongings. Books, clothes, personnel documents, old photographs, a ceramic mug my mother gave me years ago. Little pieces of a life that no longer fit here. 3 hours later, the apartment looked different. Lighter. Less mine. I placed my key on the kitchen counter. Then, I left a note. Short. Simple. Final. We're done. I've started the process of removing my name from the lease. You have 60 days to refinance or find another place. Do not contact me again. Evelyn. I didn't sign it with love. I didn't sign it with anger. Just my name. That was enough. By Monday morning, I had called a lawyer regarding the lease. By Monday afternoon, I had finished contacting the final wedding vendors. By Monday evening, every remaining loose end had been tied off. No wedding, no fiancé, no shared future. Clean break. Or as clean as these things ever get. 3 weeks later, life looked very different. The wedding would have happened the following month. Instead, I was still staying temporarily with Danielle while searching for an apartment. Nathan continued trying to contact me. Texts, emails, voicemails, even showing up at Danielle's house once. My sister sent him away before I ever reached the door. I ignored everything. Not because I hated him. Because there was nothing left to discuss. No explanation could change the facts. No apology could erase them. A week later, Claire texted me. Nathan is devastated. I stared at the message, then replied, I'm sorry he's hurting. But that doesn't change what happened. Several minutes later, she answered, "You're right. You deserve better." I looked at the screen for a long time, then put the phone away. That was the last conversation we ever had. My parents remained supportive throughout everything. Mom repeatedly told me I'd avoided a disaster. Dad rarely spoke about emotions. But one evening he called and simply said, "I'm proud of you." Those 4 words meant more than he probably realized. Not everyone agreed with my choices. Some friends believed I should have confronted Nathan immediately. Others thought canceling everything before talking to him was extreme. Maybe it was, but every time doubt appeared, I remembered one thing. If I had confronted him first, he would have had time. Time to explain. Time to justify. Time to manipulate. Time to make me question myself. Instead, by the time the full truth emerged, the wedding was already gone. The decision had been made. I was already walking away, financially. The damage was painful. Lost deposits, lease expenses, unexpected moving costs. Nearly $18,000 gone. A painful lesson. An expensive lesson. Still cheaper than divorce. 6 weeks later, I found a small, 1-bedroom apartment. Nothing fancy. No luxury finishes. No rooftop amenities. No designer lighting. Just clean walls. A good neighborhood. And enough space for a fresh start. I signed the lease immediately. For the first time in months, something felt hopeful. 4 months passed. The wedding date came and went. On the morning I was supposed to get married, I went hiking with Danielle. Neither of us mentioned the date. We didn't need to. The silence said everything. Life slowly rebuilt itself. Work improved. I accepted several consulting projects, started exercising regularly, reconnected with friends I'd neglected during the relationship, started sleeping better, started laughing again, started feeling like myself again. Then, one evening, about 6 weeks later, Nathan sent a final email. I almost deleted it without reading it. Almost. Instead, I opened it. He wrote that he'd started therapy, that losing me forced him to confront uncomfortable truths about himself, that Brooke's return exposed unresolved feelings he'd ignored for years, that he had projected his insecurities onto me, that calling me boring and plain was never really about me. It was about him, his fear, his vanity, his need for external validation. The email ended with a paragraph that lingered in my mind. "You were always enough. I just wasn't mature enough to appreciate it. Losing you is the biggest mistake I've ever made. I hope someday you find someone who sees what I failed to see." I read the email once, then deleted it. No reply. No response. No closure conversation. Just silence. A month later, I accidentally ran into one of Nathan's former friends at a coffee shop. We talked briefly. She told me Nathan had moved to another city, taken a new position, started over. I wished him well, and I genuinely meant it. Not because I forgave him, because resentment is exhausting. Eventually, you realize, moving forward matters more than looking backward. A few weeks after that, I went on my first date. Nothing serious. No instant sparks. No dramatic romance. Just dinner and conversation. And surprisingly, that felt nice. Normal. Healthy. Real. One evening, Danielle asked a question I'd been expecting. "Do you regret how you handled it?" I thought about it carefully, then shook my head. "No. Not even a little." I smiled. "Maybe I regret trusting the wrong person, but not leaving." She nodded, as if she'd expected that answer all along. The truth is, I learned a lot from everything that happened. I learned that when someone tells you who they are, I believe them, even when it hurts. I learned that being someone's backup plan is worse than being alone. I learned that canceling a wedding is expensive, but marrying the wrong person costs much more. Most importantly, I learned something about myself. I'm a civil engineer. I wear practical clothes. I drive a reliable car. I like quiet evenings. I value consistency. I'm not flashy. I'm not glamorous. And I don't need to be. The right man won't see those qualities as weaknesses. He'll see them as strengths. Nathan never truly understood that. Maybe someday someone else will. My name is Evelyn Harper. I'm 34 years old. I'm single. I'm rebuilding my life in a small apartment filled with furniture. I chose myself. Some days are harder than others, but most days, I'm grateful. Grateful. I walked away before the vows. Grateful. I saw the truth before it became a marriage. Grateful I chose myself, instead of settling for a life where I would always wonder if I was enough. Because I am enough. I always was. The only person who failed to see that was the man who lost me.